Welcome back to the Black Bibliophile podcast, episode 2. This is a podcast where I, Jazz, discuss and review books, comics, zines, and whatever else I read. It's a straightforward, no-nonsense look into popular text. Basically, I read books and talk shit about them. Sometimes good shit, sometimes not so much good shit. So, welcome back. I'm Jazz. Hope you guys had a lovely week/weekend. My weekend was pretty much uneventful. I cleaned, broke my shower, which is a long story. Like literally broke the head of my shower off of the thingy, the bobber. And yeah. Ate some food. If you hear some tapping in the background, there's construction outside of my house. There's nothing I can do about that sound. So, just try to phase it out. So let's get to the first segment of the Black Bibliophile podcast, which is the author spotlight. This week's author spotlight will be Haruki Murakami. Haruki Murakami was born in Kyoto, Japan in 1949. He grew up in Kobe and then moved to Tokyo, where he attended Waseda University. After college, Murakami opened a small jazz bar, which he and his wife ran for 7 years. His first novel, Hear the Wind Sing, won a Gunzu Literature Prize for Budding Writers in 1979. He followed his success with 2 sequels, Pinball, 1973, and A Wild Sheep Chase, which all together form the trilogy of the Rat. Murakami is also the author of the novels Hard-Boiled Wonderland and The End of the World, Norwegian Wood, Dance, 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 South of the Border, West of the Sun, The Wind-Up Bird Chronicle, Sputnik Sweetheart, Kafka on the Shore, After Dark, 1Q84, and Colorless Tsukaru Tazaki, and his years of pilgrimage. He has written 3 short story collections, The Elephant Vanishes, After the Quake, and Blind Willow, Sleeping Woman, and an illustrated novella, The Strange Library. I chose this author because, also, that bio that I just read was via the HarukiMurakami.com website. So if you go on his website, click author, all of that information I just read off will be there, posted. I chose this author because he is a science fiction fantasy writer, and his writing leads more towards the surrealist fantasy like, and that's totally my shit. I personally started, the first book I read of his was Kafka on the Shore. And so a summary of Kafka on the Shore is about 2 remarkable characters, a teenage boy named Kafka Tamara, who runs away from home either to escape a gruesome edible prophecy or to search for his long missing mother and sister. And then the second character is an aging simpleton named Nakata, who never recovered from a wartime affliction, is now drawn toward Kafka for reasons that, like the most basic activities in life, he cannot fathom. So this book was insane. And in Fish Rain from the Sky, Cats Talk, and the Colonel, like the KFC Colonel, is a pimp in it. Like, you have to read this book. This book is so weird. It's called Kafka on the Shore. It's by Haruki Murakami. And it's one of not his most famous book. His most famous book is The Wind-Up Bird Chronicle, which is huge. The book is massive. And I had to, I was physically reading it, but I was having a very hard time getting through it because of how thick it is. Like, it's not only like a big book, but how dense the way he writes is so dense that so much will happen in 20 pages that alone could be a novel. And I just couldn't get it all in at once. Like, I was having a hard time. I also have really bad short-term memory, so reading that book was difficult. So I just downloaded it on Audible. This is not sponsored. On Audible, and listened to it that way, and that was pretty great. The guy who reads it on Audible is really good, and yeah, The Wind-Up Bird Chronicle. That's also a great, great, great book. So I think his books are really great. They all feature like the same protagonist, which is an apathetic guy who hates life and all that nonsense. And then in the end, he realizes how great life is. And it's always like a male main character, and he's always searching for something. And he's always like, I don't give a fuck about nothing. Like, it's all kind of the same vibe in all of his books. But I do recommend it. He's like the most prolific author in Japan right now. He just puts out a book every week, it seems. And I think the first book that I would recommend for anybody who wants to just jump in to Haruki Murakami, I would either go Norwegian Wood or Hard-Boiled Wonderland and The End of the World, because those two books are really interesting. Very strange, but I like it. I think Kafka on the Shore, for me, was a little bit like a push into the deep end of his writing style, so I recommend you guys go to the other two. And yeah, that's my author spotlight. So check out Haruki Murakami's books. If you find any books, or if you already read his books and you want to talk about them, you can email me at the blackbibliophile@gmail.com, or if you guys want to follow along with this podcast and like live tweet, you can just hashtag every tweet the Black Bibliophile podcast, and I will comment, like, retweet, all of that nonsense. So yeah, tell me what your favorite Haruki Murakami book is. Tell me if you're interested in your writing. If you hate Haruki Murakami or hate the way I'm saying his name, you can also tweet that. But yeah, let's do it. Let's keep it going. So the second segment of the Black Bibliophile podcast, we're moving a little faster than usual. I have no idea why, but is our book review. So this week, or last week, I downloaded the book Hunger, A Memoir of My Body by Roxane Gay. And I came across this book, or I learned about this book on Twitter because I follow Roxane Gay on Twitter. You can follow her at rgay. That's her Twitter handle, RGAY. And I was just reading her tweets, and she's going through hell promoting this book because this book is about her body and about her fatness. People have taken it upon themselves to ridicule her, drag her, demean her, and all this shit. And not even talking about the book. They're just spreading their fat phobia all over any piece or anything they write about. And the main thing I saw about this book, which made me want to pick it up, which it didn't make me want to pick it up, it just made me want to support Roxane Gay's story, her book, her memoir, and what she's actually trying to do with this book instead of supporting all the negativity that people are spewing at her. But when she was promoting this book, she went to be on a podcast by I don't know what the podcast is called. I should have Googled it. Oh, wait, I did. The podcast is called Mamma Mia, and it's an Australian podcast hosted by Mia Friedman. And she opened her podcast where she was interviewing Roxane Gay about how could she prepare for somebody who's super morbidly obese. And she wrote, and I took this quote from the New York Times. If you just Google Roxane Gay and hunger, you'll find all of this on the internet. Or if you just follow her tweets or go through her tweet history or timeline. But Mia Friedman said, will she fit into the office lift? Do I have chairs that will fit her? Like, that she kept worrying about and saying these things that are totally uncalled for and pretty fucked up. And then she was like, how many steps will she have to take to get to the interview? Like, she's worried that she won't even be able to fit in an elevator, fit in a chair. She won't be able to walk into the podcast room to even promote her book. And I'm like, why are you even saying all this? She obviously can do all these things. How do you think she promotes all her other books and how she gets around? She can obviously walk. She can obviously sit in chairs, preferably chairs without arms. And she can obviously fit in elevators. Elevators have huge weight limits, but whatever. This is fucked up. So Roxane Gay tweeted out a response to hearing all of these comments, and she just said it's cruel and humiliating. And the book is about her fight with hunger, literal and figurative, but it's also about her and her body and her fatness. And it's just interesting how all the things she's talking about, all the prejudices and everything, we're all seeing. Like, after reading the book, it's interesting to see it while she's promoting the book. Like, all the fat phobia that she's talking about is something she's experiencing even more of because she wrote this book. So she's constantly being attacked on Twitter, and she's constantly being attacked by people like Mia Friedman at Mamma Mia. And it's like, I don't even think they read the book, to be honest, because if you read the book, you'd realize all of this is inappropriate and really fucked up. So, a quick bio of Roxane Gay, if none of you have heard of her. Her writing appears in Best American Mystery Stories 2014, Best American Short Stories 2012, Best Sex Writing 2012, A Public Space, McSweeney's, Tin House, Oxford American, American Short Fiction, Virginia Quarterly Review, and many others. She is a contributing opinion writer for the New York Times. She is an author. She is the author of books Aniti and Untamed State, the New York Times best-selling Bad Feminists and Difficult Women, and Hunger, which is the book I'm reviewing today. She also is the author of World of Wakanda for Marvel, so the World of Wakanda comic book from Marvel. And I got all that information on Roxane Gay's own website. It's just her name, ROXANEGAY.com. And just click the bio if you want to see all of those titles. A summary of the book Hunger, a memoir of my body, is a searingly honest memoir about food, weight, self-image, and learning how to feed your hunger while taking care of yourself. I want to trigger warn anybody. If you have a problem with sexual assault or rape, I would be wary of this book because there's obviously detailed rape scene within it. It's not very detailed, but it's enough. Like, I was upset. So I got this book on Audible because she narrates it herself. So I thought it'd be interesting to hear her memoir from her own, in her own voice, which I highly recommend. You can get it on Audible. Not sponsored. Really not sponsored. This is my second episode. Who the hell's going to sponsor me? Anyways, but it's in her own voice and it's amazing. And I feel like if you want to truly experience and feel the book, I recommend you get it on Audible. Also, you can buy it at wherever they sell books near you. Yeah. So there is a sexual assault in the story. And the story is, this memoir is about how Roxane Gay was gang raped at 12 and how she ate and became heavy. She became fat and built this shell around herself because she thought, or she believed that if she was overweight, it would deter men away. It would make her invisible. It would keep her safe. It's actually like a physical wall. Her fat is a physical wall to keep away the dangerous males in her life. So the book corners on this incident. So if you have any issues with rape or sexual assault, I'd keep that in mind when going out to buy this book or to read this book. But honestly, it's it is a pivotal point of the memoir, but it's not like, it's brought up heavily in like the beginning, but towards the end of the book, it's almost like as she grows up, the sexual assault is always there, and it's like the basis as to why she's gained weight and why she hides and why everything is the way it is, or how how her life turned out. But she doesn't revisit it often because as her life proceeds, it's just more and more. It's hard to explain. It's just the hunger in her life is like the literal hunger for food, and how it comforted her and made her feel safe and loved, and then the hunger for more in her life. Like she's constantly looking for love, affection, looking for reassurance and things like that through the book. But then the book is also about trauma, her trauma with her being raped and how she deals with that, and how the subsequent weight gain causes trauma from everyone else around her. So she gets people attacking her physical form when she becomes a more public figure, and then just in everyday life when she's going shopping and people go and literally reach into her cart and take food out of her cart, telling her what she can and can't eat. Like strangers are doing this. So it's like the trauma of having to deal with being fat in a fat phobic society, and how the female form is supposedly predicated, like your worth, self-worth is predicated on how you look. And so dealing with that in a society, dealing with her fatness in a society that believes that looks are everything, and how that affects her life, is also a huge part of this book. That was like the longest rambling session. I hope that made sense. I really do. And then it's also about fear. Her fear of letting anyone in. Her fear that if she loses weight, then she'll start getting that attention from men that she doesn't want. The fear that she will never be loved. The fear. There's so much fear. And it's basically just a book about Roxane coming into her own, even though something terrible happened to her while she was young. It didn't completely kill her. Like, it killed her. Who she was before is gone, dead. She's not there anymore. But this new Roxane, the Roxane we see now, how she came into her own and how what happened to her rippled and affected her for the rest of her life. It's a heartbreaking but also uplifting story of how she went from being a mess. In her words, she called herself a hot mess, and how she'll never be that hot of a mess again, to navigating life in a fat-phobic world, and how it's not often easy to do that. And also how navigating in a world being a Black woman where she mostly lived in predominantly white spaces. So she lived in the Midwest for the longest time. So she was a fat Black woman in the Midwest. So that had a lot to do with that too. It also deals with hunger, also delves into her sexuality. It delves into the way television and media portrays fatness and how it's damaging to the people, to actual fat people. Like shows like The Biggest Loser, My 600-Pound Life, stuff like that. How those shows can be degrading and cast this awful negative light onto these people who are just trying to live, really. Like, if you've ever watched My 600-Pound Life, I've watched it, and it's the most heartbreaking show, because super morbidly obese people who are trapped in their homes, who can't wash themselves, who can't really walk. Some of them can't even get out of bed. And it's like the cameras, it's this very invasive process, like where you see them naked showering, or you see them just wearing tarps like they can't move. And it's very invasive, and it's all this sad, dramatic music. And I always felt uncomfortable while watching it because I'm like, okay. And then they go see Dr. Nazarian, the weight loss doctor, and he's supposed to make their lives 100% better, make them worthy or whatever. And he just kind of yells at them and berates them into losing weight. And then, you know, towards the end, they either lose the weight or they don't. And if they don't, then they're just going to be a lost cause and have a terrible life. Or, you know, it's just like a really dark show where it's like, if you don't lose weight, you'll have a terrible life and nobody will love you. Or if you do lose weight, you'll have a beautiful life. And like, it's like, okay, whatever. And there's people who aren't even like ultra morbid or obese. There's people who can still hold down jobs and stuff, but are like treated like the scum of the earth. But I digress. Those shows are really, like, invasive to me. These are my opinions. If you don't like them, I'm sorry. I do appreciate towards the end of her book, in Hunger, she talks about accessibility issue. So as a disabled woman, it's really interesting to hear her talk about how, for her, it's hard, you know. She's always looking for elevators or like more accessible places. And she was talking about it's hard for her to find accessibility. Then imagine being people in wheelchairs or walkers or like really disabled. I think it's interesting. And I like that she did bring up those accessibility issues with especially con spaces and stuff like that. So I do appreciate that about the book. I feel like I'm rambling. I'm sorry, you guys, if this is not the best review of this book. It's kind of difficult to talk about Hunger because it's a memoir and it's so good. Let me just put that out there. It's so good. It's not impossible to talk about, but it is difficult to really wrap your head around it. Or maybe it's just I'm having a bad brain week. That could be happening. I have a ton of notes in front of me, but getting my words out is pretty hard on this subject. I just want you all to know that Hunger is an amazing book. I 110% recommend it. Just even if you have been reading the headlines and seeing all this bullshit that Roxane Gay is going through promoting this book, you should read this book and see it from her point of view. Know it from her point of view. It's a scathingly honest, beautiful story about her life and her experiences with being fat and being and living in this society and just her life. I feel like everyone should read this book. And yeah, 110% recommend it. Run out to wherever you buy books and buy it. It's called Hunger, A Memoir of My Body by Roxane Gay. And yeah, let's take a break and we'll come back. Welcome back to the Black Bibliophile podcast. Now we're just going to get into a brief moment in comics. So this week I'll be talking about Space Battle Lunchtime, Volume 1 and Volume 2 by Natalie Reiss. She wrote and drew this beautiful book. So here's a quick summary of the book. I got this on Amazon. So, you can buy it there on Amazon for pretty cheap. But let me read you the summaries for both book 1 and book 2. Collecting the first 4 issues of Natalie Reiss's delectable series Space Battle Lunchtime, Earthbaker Peony gets the deal of a lifetime when she agrees to be a contestant on the universe's hottest reality TV show, Space Battle Lunchtime. But that is before she knew that it shoots on location on a spaceship. And her alien competitors don't play nice. Does Peony really have what it takes to be the best cook in the galaxy? So that was volume 1. And then volume 2 is it's almost time for the season finale of Space Battle Lunchtime. And finalist Peony, the Earth's only contestant, is nowhere to be found. That's because she's been kidnapped and taken to the set of Space Battle Lunchtime's biggest rival, Cannibal Coliseums, where chefs compete to cook each other. Up against some of the most dangerous aliens in the galaxy, will Peony even make it to the end of the show? So this first season of Space Battle Lunchtime, let me just put it out there, it's amazing. I discovered this book while I was working in my store. So every Wednesday we get new books, new trades, whatever. I own and operate Visionary Comics in downtown Riverside, California. And I was going through the boxes and setting up the store and, packing and all of that stuff, unpacking and all that stuff. I found these 2 books and I was like, oh, let me just flip through, read it, check it out. I love the art. I love cooking and it looked adorable. So I read the first one. It's addicting. It's amazing. The colors are beautiful. The art is beautiful. The book is a funny, sweet, and diverse, inclusive story. And it's really fun. And it's, did I already say it's cute? It's really, really cute. I can't emphasize how cute this book is. It's like an all ages comic book. And yeah, and I love space stuff. So this was right up my alley. I'm in love with science fiction. It's a fun satire on the Food Network competition show. So the show she's on, Space Battle Lunchtime, is a very, very much Chopped, if you've ever watched that show on the Food Network, where they get a secret ingredient. They have a certain amount of time to cook it all up and stuff. And then they get judged by 3 top judges or 3 top chefs. And I like it because the 3 judges are these weird alien dudes. And then her secret ingredient is nothing she's ever seen before because we're in a fucking spaceship in space cooking with aliens. So, of course, it's a weird ingredient. And, the other competitors are fighting and sabotaging each other. And I think it's just a really cute, play on all those Food Network cooking competition shows. Peony, the protagonist, is this kick-ass, queer, female protagonist. And I feel like that's rarely seen. She's also brown. I don't know what her ethnicity is, but I know her ethnicity is brown. So, if you like brown, queer protagonists who are adorable, check this out. And it's lighthearted and beautifully drawn. And I like that the approachness to Peony's queerness is really subtle. Oh my God. Speak English, Jess. Her approach to queerness is really subtle and matter of fact. It's not a big, huge thing. And it's not something that'll take you out of the story. It's just hey, she thinks this other competitor's cute, and this other competitor happens to be femme. Also, the other competitor's an alien, so I don't know how, female and male gender, sexuality, biology works in her alienness, but we just know that the alien is femme. So it's kind of a weird, not weird, but whatever. So you can't really call her queer because it's an alien, but it's queer because she's female, I guess, or femme. I don't know, whatever. And, I have nothing bad to say about this book. I love this book, and I recommend everybody to read Space Battle Lunchtime. Go to your local comic book shops and check it out. I'm sure all of them will have them. I know they're still doing single issues of this book. I think they are on issue 14 or 15. I think I got issue 15 last time. So I know season 2 is already out for single issues, but I know it's not in trade form. So yeah, pick up season 1 in trade paperback form at your local comic book shop. And now on to the zine corner. The zine corner, or the zine that I'm focusing on this week. But let me back up. The zine corner is a segment of the show where I focus on zines, small comic booklets that you can get from like a zine fest, or if you go to any con, usually artists / creators make these small little books of their work that are usually from $3 to $5 to $10 to $15. And so in the zine corner, I'm just reviewing one zine per show. And if you guys have any zines that you want me to check out, or you want me to read your zine and like talk about it on the show, you can email me at theblackbibliophile@gmail.com. So theblackbibliophile@gmail.com. And you can also tweet me or at me to any of your zines, your favorite zines, on Twitter at the Black Bibliophile. So my Twitter handle is spelled, obviously the @ sign, then THEBLACKBIBLIOPHI. So it's the Black Bibliophile. So if you want to tag me or retweet or DM me, slide up in them DMs with some cool zines, feel free to do that. And yeah, let's get into the zine of this week. I'm picking another zine from Silver Sprocket Publishing, based in San Francisco. Really into their zines right now. This zine is called, or the zine I'm focusing on is called Siren School by Isabella Rotman. And it's a funny, cathartic read in the age of mansplaining. A full-color mini-comic course in Sirening 101. Do it right and men will throw themselves into the sea. So this book by Isabella Rotman is a book about sirens. It's a Siren 101 book, so it's like a textbook on how to be a good siren. And it's in how to learn, how to do it right and have men throw themselves into the sea so the sirens can eat them. If you know anything about sirens, they're the like mermaids or women that pirates or sailors would see or hear singing, and their singing voices will lure men into the depths, and basically they drown, and I guess the sirens would eat them. I don't know what they did with the bodies after that. But in this zine, the whole thing is like an older siren giving lessons on how the sirens can really bring them in. So the first part is talking about how the singing no longer works. That doesn't really do it anymore. So they have a scene in the zine where one of the girl sirens is telling them to come closer, closer, closer. And then she leans in and she's like, I don't understand the plot of Star Wars. And it's hilarious because if you say that online ever, you'll get mansplained to death. And that's the point. Like, the men will want to mansplain it so much that then they'll just be dragged down to the depths of the sea. So the whole book is a hilarious satire on mansplaining and how all these women so all these sirens are saying all these things that will get a reaction out of the mansplaining man. And if you don't know what mansplaining, it's basically when men try to explain to you things you already know. Explain to women things they already know or things that they're currently doing. So a great example of mansplaining is, I will say, if I post something online that says, I hate The Force Awakens, which I don't really like that movie, then men will slide into that post and start telling me why I should like The Force Awakens, like the whole plot and what was good about it, even though I've obviously seen the movie and I obviously know what I liked and what I didn't like about that movie and why I don't like that movie, but the men still decide to explain to you why you should like that movie. That's mansplaining for the most part. Men trying to explain to you shit you already know. So every siren in this book has a cool catchphrase to drag men in. One is like, yeah, I play video games. And then another one is, oh, my car, it's not working. It's making like this weird noise. And like, it's just all these cute little phrases. And like the girl was like, oh, I love video games, but not real video games. So the art is amazing. The story is hilarious. And it's $5 on Silver Sprocket's website, silversprocket.net. And honestly, it's just a fun little read. It's a short book, well made, well constructed, full color. It's worth every dollar. And I suggest you guys go out there and pick up Siren School by Isabella Rotman. Yeah. And that's the end of the show. If you guys want to send a request for books for me to review, zines you want me to take a look at, or just want to send me questions or comments about the podcast, how I can make it better, or what have you, you can email me at theblackbibliophile@gmail.com. It's spelled exactly how you see it in the picture. And if you want to follow this podcast, you can follow it at the Black Bibliophile on Twitter, and that is THEBLKBIBLIOPHI. And you can find this podcast on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Music, and wherever else you listen to podcasts. So I'll see you guys in about a week and a half, and I hope you enjoyed this show. And yeah, leave a comment on iTunes. That really helps with my visibility. And, you know, rate and review. Tell me what you think. Send me cool zines to read. I'm really into that. So yeah. Thank you guys for listening, and yeah, we'll talk to you next time.